There are things that every business owner can do to make sure they are attracting and retaining their talent. There are what I call the 3 C's of candidate selection that are very, very important. And really, retention starts with selecting the right person to begin with. The first C is for capabilities. And this is about skills. This is about, what somebody can do, what they have learned, some of their experience. The second C is for commitment. You really want to understand what's driving this person to be there, to come work for you. And the last C is probably one of the most difficult ones to detect in an interview, is about culture fit. So in order for you to determine, does this person really fit here, not just from a skill set perspective, but also from a personality perspective, you really need to know and understand what is the culture in your practice.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into super clinic owners. You are here today with Jennifer Gligoric. I'm the host, and we have a very special guest that I know you guys are going to love. Plus, she is giving us some incredible bonuses that you can download right off our school platform once we stop, listening to this. Today's guest is a dynamic expert. She helps CEOs tackle turnover and talent challenges. I know all of our clinic owners are going to really want to listen to this. She has a wealth of experience spanning startups to multinational corporations, and she specializes in aligning HR strategies with business goals, empowering organizations to reduce turnover, boost engagement, and cultivate high-performing teams. Her passion for leadership development and strategic talent management ensures that businesses thrive while creating workplaces where employees excel. So I'm very excited to talk to her today. So let's please welcome Ulli Hildebrand, the founder of Pinpoint Solutions. Welcome, Ulli.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate being here.
Oh, I'm very excited that you're here. Ulli and I've had several conversations already, and she has incredible insight onto the challenges that we're facing. Finding good people is hard to find now. It seems like it's a very weird market. And one of our biggest challenges that our employers face is how to attract and retain great talent, especially since COVID. And it feels like the workforce is just different. They feel different right now. Do you have any tips for struggling healthcare clinic owners on things they can do to attract and also retain good talent rather than just, well, they're the only person we could get?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a $60,000 question, right? Everybody would like the one size fits all answer. And unfortunately, that does not exist.
Mhm.
However, I believe there are things that every business owner can do to make sure they are attracting and retaining their talent. When we talk about attracting talent, it is about making sure that potential candidates know about you. They know about your company, your practice, they know what you stand for, what you do. So it's no different, basically, when you think about it, than trying to get clients or patients. You want to be out there and positioning your practice in a way that candidates who have the skill set for the jobs that you need to have filled are interested in coming and working for you. Now, when you do find a candidate, let's just say you have a job and it was posted, and now you have applications, and on resume, on paper, someone looks really good. When you actually do interview someone, there are what I call the 3 C's of candidate selection that are very, very important. And really, retention starts with selecting the right person to begin with.
Right.
So the first C is for capabilities, and this is about skills. This is about what somebody can do, what they have learned, some of their experience, and you really want to ask behavioral-based questions and maybe even put them through mock scenarios. So often behavioral-based questions refer to the past. So tell me about a situation when. but you can't really judge that context if it was for a different employer. So you might want to give a scenario that's actually realistic in your practice. Let's just say you have a situation where a patient is absolutely not, is in pain and is not coming down, and they don't want to, they want to talk to you as the doctor. And so, how do you handle this if you're interviewing for someone who is a nurse? So that's on the capability side. The second C is for commitment. You really want to understand what's driving this person to be there, to come work for you. Why are they in that job to begin with? What do they really like or love about this job? And what are things that they don't like about this job? And that the latter one is really important, assuming that you have a team, you have more than one person. If you have five people and everybody doesn't like to do the same thing, that one thing is never going to get done. So you want to have a good mix, based on, for skill set, for personality, for what people like, what they appreciate doing, and what they really enjoy doing. And the last C is one of my favorite ones, and probably one of the most difficult ones to detect in an interview, is about culture fit. So, in order for you to determine, does this person really fit here, not just from a skill set perspective, but also from a personality perspective, you really need to know and understand what is the culture in your practice. What is it? How do you operate? What are your values? And do the candidates' values align with what you want them to do? If you're a patient, which I'm assuming most of you are, which you're a patient first company or practice, and you have that culture, then you need people who really want to help people. You need people who can focus on the patient concern.
Yeah. And what gets tough with us is when, you know, is remembering to do this in the interview, just remembering and getting into the habit of training yourself on how to interview. Because what happens is they come in, you ask a couple of questions on the resume, and you're just so excited that someone's willing to take the pay and actually show up that you get an offer. And really, you have no idea if they're a true fit or not with your culture, or if they're going to gel right with the team. You think so. Well, they seem cool. I mean, how many doctors I've talked to, well, they seemed okay in the interview. And it's because it actually is a skill set that you're going to have to learn. Like sales is a skill set. You have to have deeper, more meaningful conversations. Um,
And
yeah.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I've made this mistake myself. I remember very well. I interviewed someone, and I ended up hiring him and relocating him and his family from a
Oh,
different state, because I loved him. The interview went great, and then he came, and it just didn't work out. And in hindsight, I realized that during this interview that I had with this person, I talked more than this person did. And that should never be the case. If you interview someone, that person you're interviewing should be talking at least two-thirds of carry at least two-thirds of the conversation. So listening is an important skill also, when you interview people.
yeah. And having the questions ahead of time. There are just so many people who really are, well, I wouldn't even know to ask that question because they naturally are not curious people about other people. So I am a very curious person about other people, so I can, ask questions, but some people really, really aren't. They wouldn't know what to ask, or they feel odd to ask them those
But
questions.
but I also think, Jennifer, one of the potential challenges is that the aspect of cultural fit in the soft side is so often underestimated. It is just so often underestimated. We look at skill set. Just think about how people get promoted. It will talk about, do they have the skill set? Do they show the performance? And then we promote them. We don't ask, why do they want this? We don't ask these questions, so we think because somebody can do it, they're a good fit. And really, if you go back in your history, you might have experienced this myself. It's so much you can, if somebody doesn't have the skill set, you can teach them. But if someone doesn't have the commitment or isn't a fit for your organization, you won't change them.
No.
So it's the key is really, more on the commitment and the culture fit side, because if someone, provided that they're willing and able to learn, which, we would assume, uh, you can teach them the skills. but you can't teach them the culture fit, most likely, because you don't change people's personality.
Mm-hmm. The other question I have, and I get from that's really good. And by the way, guys, one of the freebies that Ulli is providing for us, it's going to be in, well, I say freebie, it's actually an incredible tool that she's providing for everybody will have, is going to be the 3 C's of candidate selection, where she really goes into this. And this is going to be a downloadable after our episode. So you can go straight to our free school, get it along with all of other Ulli's information as well. You can, along with her website, which is at pin-pointtalent.com. So everything we're going to be talking about, there is going to be a great, incredible tool that Ulli has provided on this for you guys. So another question that we get is, let's say you already have hired them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're trying, and what we do is we have an accelerator program, right? So we are taking clinics to the next level. And sometimes the people that they have are not the people that got them there, are not going to be the people to take them next level. And sometimes they just need some help or retraining or reframing. So what do you do? What's the best way, especially when you're patient centric, but yet all of a sudden to you, the employee, the doctor's like, we've got to make more money and we're going to get more patients. We're going to do something different. And you feel that maybe that doesn't align with why you're there. Of course, for the doctor, they're like, I can help more people, right? If I do this, I'm going to help a lot more people make bigger impacts. But how would you, it used to be we would put people on a performance improvement plan. You'd sit down with them and then you tell them that, and now that's gotten kind of a bad rap. So what do you work with people when you need to retrain or get them say, you know what, we're not hitting the mark anymore. We were, but this is where we need to go now.
Yeah. So just one quick comment back to hiring. When you hire someone, you want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure you hire someone who is adaptable, and who
Right.
doesn't by nature resist any type of change. If you can figure it out. Sometimes you
Yeah.
can't, but if you can, But to your point and to the situation, that's it. It's a typical change management challenge. One of the key things in our change management process is clear communication. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And answer the question, what's in it for me, for the employee? So how do they benefit from this? So let's just say it's the introduction of a technical tool, so they have
Mm-hmm.
done something on paper by hand and now they need to put it in the system, and it's something like that. And someone might be resisting to this. You'd have to really understand why are they resisting this, what is their issue. So listening, asking the right questions, to your earlier point, and listening is very much key. uh, Everybody goes through a change curve at a different pace, but everybody will go through it. You have early adopters, the folks that will go for it and say, yeah, that's exciting, I want to try this, I want to be part of this. You have the people that are not going to unless you make them, on the other end of the
Mm-hmm.
spectrum. And the biggest part of the people are usually in the middle. They kind of sit back and watch for a little while, and then eventually they kind of get with the program and it's all not that bad, but they're not necessarily the ones jumping ahead of it. So any type of change, it's really important to navigate that with empathy, understanding what's going on in those people's heads. Are they afraid that they're losing their job? Are they, are there serious concerns that you can actually talk about and address and help them with? Or is it just somebody who absolutely doesn't want to do it, period? And that exists too. But when you get to the point where you figure out that someone, even though they could, but they really just don't get with the program and they don't want to, just because they don't want to, then I think you have no choice other than to make a change there.
Yeah.
I
And I know
Mhm.
turnover is a big deal for our, a lot of physicians are very turnover resistant. They'll keep employees who tell them, well, you can't do anything without me. They'll keep a person who's basically mutinied and now they're a negative force and everything starts to go downhill and they still won't let this person go. Right.
Yeah.
But, and I know that turnover, you have to think about it as far as what that person is, how worth it is it? And I know one of the tools that Ulli is providing is a turnover calculator, because there are two camps. There are people who will just fire easily, very easily, and not invest. Well, you don't want to do that. You have to invest and train people, because it is very expensive to turn over. But that at one point, the turnover, you're going to have to do it. Um, I'm going to let you
Yeah.
speak.
So turnover, I agree with turnover can be very expensive. So you want to think about it, before you
Mm-hmm.
do it. But also let's not underestimate how big the cost of inaction is when you have someone who is not a fit or who is actively disengaged and potentially talking bad about you and your practice and what's going on. The cost of inaction and keeping this person is tremendous as well, because you lose other people's engagement, you lose productivity, you have other people quit because they don't want to be there if the
Mm-hmm.
situation and the environment isn't as as they would like to see it or would like to have it. I think cost of inaction is always something that every business owner needs to really look at. And it's interesting, I think they do that more so in sales. Like you would never not pursue sales in a business because you know that you're not making money, right? That's a cost of inaction if you don't do that. So same probably with marketing and other functions. In HR, it's the same thing. If you have a bad apple, you can't afford to just keep it. However, to your point, Jennifer, I think it's really important. If just because someone can't do or isn't high performing from day one, and you still owe people the attempt to help them through a change. You owe them giving them a chance to get with a program.
Mm-hmm.
Once you realize it's not happening, then you have every right, and you should take action. But other than that, I think people deserve a chance.
It was interesting. I was at a conference, and it was a tech conference years ago. I think it was like 2014. Anyway, so the person that was giving the speech was in HR, and she worked for a Louisiana kind of like garbage company. Well,
Mhm.
like they would pick up things, but they were more industrial. And she talked about this challenge of investing in employees, but also understanding where their talent was. And she said, we had someone who was in a graphic designer. They had the degree, they had that, and they just told them they were really unhappy, and she goes, like, what's happened? They're like, I don't like this, but I love this company and I love this. Is there any way I could move? And it was to something totally different outside of their degree. And she said, I don't know why. Normally, our thing would say, we'd have to let you go, right? Because we needed interior designer. She goes, but they really did like the company,
Mm,
even though they were kind of burnt out. And we'd had some uncomfortable conversations with that. They just decided, let's go ahead and switch this person because we kind of need someone here. And lo and behold, she goes, and that's the person we did it to. And it was the president of the company then. He wanted to do something else and they moved him up, and he started out like in graphics. And it was just, and he was like, that was me. I was the bad apple. I was just really unhappy,
right.
but they did it, and now he's president of the company.
No,
And I
and
thought, that's
you're
really,
raising a very important point, and that is the participation of the employee in
mm,
their own happiness at work.
yeah,
Um, so when you have a small setting, small practice or small
mm,
company, you may not be able to move them someplace else.
right.
So it becomes more of a discussion. What would it take? What do you need? And that challenges the employee to really think about it. I've experienced this many times in my career that you sit down for a development conversation with an employee and you ask, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I'll do whatever the company needs me to do. Well, that doesn't help me, right? I said, so once again, let me ask you, what do you want to do? Well, whatever the company needs me to do. So I'm saying, so if I ask you to clean the bathrooms because that's what we need done, is that what you're going to do? And then of course that's not what they wanted to do. But it's so important for employees to understand that they have a role in their own career path as well. They need to understand what it is that they want, and then they all can be part of designing it. And if it can't be done, then yes, by all means, maybe they have to go someplace else.
Yeah, I think it's that fear that stops them from being honest. by saying, I see the writing on the wall and I just want to, and then you have to say, well, if that's not what we can do, is that, how afraid of you of that? And then make an exit plan that actually honors them and gives them a time to go and get someone else rather than just have
I
them quit.
Yeah, yeah, and I will say from my experience,
Mhm.
when and it's some of my former people call this the Ulli way, but
I love it.
in terms of having a conversation with people who are not performing, that you're kind of understanding you're going to manage them to the way out. The very important question to ask is, are you happy here? Are you really happy here? Because you want that employee to start thinking about it and hopefully realizing that if they're not happy here, then there are other options. And at that point, it becomes much more of a constructive and productive conversation than controversial, where someone goes in and fires the other person. We
Mhm.
decided you're no longer, we don't want you here. That's a hard message to convey. But if you have a dialogue and the individual can actually say, it's really not working for me, and you can sit down and you can talk about what options, if any, there are. And if there aren't any, now you can have a conversation about where does that take us. And it's a joint pathfinding rather than one person making the decision and letting the other one hang out to dry.
Yeah, it's part of adulting though, right? That is next level adulting. That's where you are expecting them to be an adult and handle that fear, handle that disappointment, handle that, especially in an uncertain job market. For them, maybe they won't find a job right away. Maybe they will suffer a little bit, but at the same time, you have to be open about it and not just blind, like, to them, I'm blindsided. I'm going to tell you, most people, when they get fired, they're not really blindsided, but they sure feel that way, right?
Well, when
Some
it
are, but
happens, I think when it happens, it's a very emotional
mhm.
moment.
Yes.
I think I agree. I think a lot of people can see the writing on the wall.
Mhm.
But I've always encouraged the people that work with me to tell me, like, early and honestly, how they feel about it. And if they tell me, look, I'm not happy right now, I don't know where this is going, and we can't find a solution, then I will help them find a solution within or outside the company. But I also have a heads up, a multiple week or month heads up that allows me to build a succession and to hire someone else who will fill the job. And so I don't have the gap that can be so crucial.
Yeah. This is a really good conversation because it's very, I think that it is even, I mean, I would say it's hard to let anybody go, but I would say in healthcare, you just have a lot of very empathetic people. I see a lot of our clinic owners holding on to people because they just they don't have the heart to do it, but at the same time they're prolonging the misery for everyone. And
And
you're just like, you know what? You would tell that patient to pull the band-aid off. Why aren't you doing that with yourself? Why aren't
yeah,
you going forward with these sorts of conversations, but at least they're,
yeah.
productive?
Yeah. But there might be other ways to still help this person. So
Mhm.
I mean, the way I look at it is, so if it's a practice with, 10 people and there's one person who's been there for several years and he or she has done a very good job so far, but now we're having a huge change and it's not working. And for whatever reason, the time has come to make a change. It's hard to forget the 10 years that this person was doing well, right?
Yeah.
So think about what else can you do for this individual. There are outplacement services. You could offer this individual a few months of help to find a new job. You could also, if it's not terrible, you could also figure out a way to create a transition period and say, yes, you're going to look for another job. So for the next 3 months, and again, I'm just making this up, maybe
Yeah.
you can remain here on a part-time basis and you can hire someone else in part-time that hopefully, will prove to be the right hire that you can turn into a full-time hire. So how can you create a transition that is, that works and that is somewhat human, that doesn't, that really lets you feel, and this is really the key, I think, in everything that we do. You want to be able to look in the mirror and say you've done the right thing. So So you want to be right, you want to do right by the person, but you also have to do right by your business.
Yes, and get the right contract in place. I will say that coming from an HR background where I often worked with, contentious situations that came up, make sure everything in the agreement is all in black and white. We are transitioning you out. This is an exit plan for you. However, you've been here for 10 years. Write it all down. This is what the expectation is. This is what's going to happen. And then make sure everybody knows, because chances are the moment they do find something, they will immediately go to work with them. They will not work that out, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And as an employer, there's one thing that you should definitely do. If you have a job description, first of all, you should have a job description
Yeah.
for whatever job you hire.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have it, you list the main responsibilities intentionally. You do not list everything that this individual does, just the 5 or 6 main things. And the last bullet point in every job description says, other duties as assigned. So
Mm.
as the job evolves, as you need someone to do something that they weren't hired for, you take away that opportunity to say, well, that's not my job. Well, your job is whatever duty I assign to you. That's in your job description, and that's what you signed. So you not only have the job description, the candidate will see the job description or will get a copy of it, and ideally
Mm.
they sign it and it goes in their file. That way you have an understanding and they have an understanding that they might be requested to do other things as well.
Yeah, until it comes to the point where they're really doing something completely different. Then anytime you give them a raise or they're promoted, you need to have new documentation for that, because then they can come back and there can be recourse depending on what state you're in. There could be recourse saying, hey, I was actually doing this and they still wanted to classify me as this, et cetera. You do have to
Yeah.
do that as well. There's a lot to it. I know that we're going off. One of the other things I wanted to bring up, there's so much we could talk to Ulli about. You have so much experience and so much that we can pick your brain on. But one of the other not bonuses, but really tools that you're giving us is a self-assessment for the CEO on their talent infrastructure. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because I think that is something that our listeners and all of our docs are going to want to do immediately.
Yeah, so it's really a tool for anyone, to evaluate the state that they're in as it relates to their talent, what I
Mm.
call talent infrastructure or their talent management operating system, whatever you want to call it. And so basically the way it's a simple Excel sheet. Basically the way this works is you rate on a scale from 1 to 5 a particular statement that's being made. And I'll give you an example. Um, the first one is, our organizational structure is clear. It supports efficient decision making, scalable growth, and operational prevents operational bottlenecks. And so you take that statement and you say, is that true or is that not true, basically? So 1 being it's really not true, it's not in place, and 5 being it's fully optimized, we have it, and this all works fine. And so you go through 25 questions, and there are instructions how to rate this, and you come out with a score, and that score will have a general statement of your state. Should you do something about it, or how does it affect your growth? How does it affect your scalability? And based on that, you can decide, what to do, where to go. Because if you score in that, let's just say you score in this organizational efficiency section really low, then maybe that's where your focus will be. If you score high on that, but at the same time on your leadership piece you're scoring low, then that's where some of your efforts should go. So, and that's something to discuss once you have the assessment, the self-assessment done.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And we are already at the end. I could talk to you for a very long time because I'm going to tell you, the strength of the company is the strength of the people, no matter which organization you're in, that's the gold. So what we're talking about is really the thing that takes you to the next level and the strength of the team. Again, guys, we've been talking to Ulli Hildebrand. If you want to hear more from her, you can go to pin-pointtalent.net. Again, she is the founder of of Pinpoint Solutions. And also, too, after our episode, you can go to superclinicproject.com. You can go down to the school. It's at the bottom right-hand corner. If you click on that, you can get into our school. That's SKOOL platform for free. And with each episode this is where we put all the tools that our different guests will have, and we usually have a synopsis, and just all the information that we talk about is very accessible for you guys to be able to use. Please like, share, and rate us. We have it right there on the website. With one click, you can do it all. And I just want to thank you again, Ulli. You've been absolutely an amazing guest. Thank you so much.
I thank you, Jennifer. It was a pleasure being here. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and if I can help anyone, please just reach out. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.